Hey, it's Ronan Segal, your accordion teacher. I just finished doing my live stream today, and I had a question from a parent about their 7-year-old who just started learning the organetto, a kind of accordion, and the parent's question was, how long should a 7-year-old be practicing the accordion? So in this video, I wanted to share my thoughts as a parent of a 7-year-old as well. I have thoughts about children and musical education. I have thoughts about adults and musical education, but specifically children. I used to be a child, and I have 2 children, 2 boys. And so let me share some of my thoughts around musical education. I'll link you here to my answer that I gave to this parent during the live stream, but I've had some more thoughts throughout the day. One of my hopes for when my children are adults, when Wolf is 50 years old, I would love for him to be able to keep his musicality. What that means, my hope, for my child is for him to be able to sit down at whatever instrument that he wants to learn, whether it's the keyboard or guitar or the drums, and to be able to express himself musically. That's my North Star. That would be a gold A+ for my children to be able to express themselves musically. With that hope in mind, there's a certain musical path to get the child there. Again, each parent's musical expectations of their children will be different, and each child will be different as well. I'm speaking about my child, who is very musical. He's rhythmic, he's expressive, he's lyrical, he taps and makes rhythms, and I'll show you a little clip from a fundraiser that we did last year where you could see he's just openly exploring vocals and rhythm and consonants, and I'll show you the clip right now.
Da, I think I am Phantom Ba. Did you hear me say phantom?
Yeah, that's a good word.
Because I'm a ghost.
Yeah.
Ba, I am a phantom ba. Da 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 pa ha. O for not the hating who.
So again, my hope is that over the next few years, he starts to understand with musical education that there's music, that there's a language that we could learn to understand those things that he's doing. So we just signed him up for music lessons, and we were apprehensive about doing it. We really wanted to. I was afraid, same as my wife. I was afraid that of going for him for musical education to be too formal, and for it to kill his desire to be musical. I don't want him to be scared of music. I want him to keep exploring his musicality and his rhythm the way that he goes about through life, which is experientially. He's very much... We got him a keyboard last week, and I love watching him sit there and go through different sounds. I love watching him making up patterns. I love watching him turn on the drum machine and play with a tempo, make it really fast and try and make the notes fit into the rhythm, and then make it really slow and play with the sounds and make them fit into the rhythm. That's all experiential learning. He's not doing it musically correctly. He's not using the right fingers. He's using 2 hands with like this, like typing like that. And that's totally fine. He's playing really loudly sometimes. We make him use headphones, but that's totally fine. He uses multiple notes that don't make chords, and that's totally fine at this stage for a 7-year-old. For my 7-year-old, your 7-year-old might be different. For my 7-year-old, that kind of experiential learning is how he absorbs music, and I think that that's wonderful and beautiful. And again, my hope for musical education with him, if he wants to continue, which he is, he's very excited about education with this magical teacher that we have, is to start to learn that, to name these patterns, to name these intervals, eventually to learn that you could use these 2 fingers because it really makes it faster, but it's okay to do this. Eventually to learn that this interval makes a minor chord, and what happens when we mix a minor and a major. But for it to be child-led with insight from an educator. What I love about Accordion Love, I'm not plugging Accordion Love, but what I love about doing this with adults, we do this through challenges. I think an adult can sort of, this is digging in a little bit, this is digging a little bit into how a 7-year-old should practice versus how a 40-year-old should practice. The similarities there are challenges. We do a lot of challenges on Accordion Love. Every month we do a new musical challenge, which is taking a musical concept like dynamics or silence or multiple notes, and applying those. And there's no correct answer. Whether you're a beginner or an advanced player, you could do these challenges. And what I hope for a musical education for a young person, are to do these sorts of challenges, to introduce ideas in this way. I do want to make a note in that not every child is different and not every learner is different. My son, my 7-year-old, is very, like I said, experiential. He needs to do something and then he'll start to understand it down the line. My 9-year-old son needs a very different type of education. Right now, he's not doing musical education, but I believe that he needs to be challenged much more, and he would get very bored of sitting there. He would understand the keyboard in a day, and he doesn't need it anymore. So his musical education will look very different than my 7-year-old's education. To answer this parent's question about what does practice look like for a 7-year-old, the most important part that this parent wrote was that we don't have to force him to practice. This caregiver doesn't have to force the 7-year-old to practice. And I think that that's the most important step in learning any skill. When there's a desire from the learner to do the thing that they want to do, that's the best thing to keep them engaged. I remember as a child, when I started learning keyboard, I would come home and just do what my son is doing now and just play with the sounds of the keyboard. I would spend time playing, not practicing, playing. So for a 7-year-old to want to do an activity is a fantastic step. It means you don't have to force him to practice. It depends on who this person is. I don't know this other 7-year-old, but for me, I never practiced what my teacher told me to do. I never opened the book. The book would say, do page 7 triads, do arpeggios, do page 12, the right hand of this song. I never opened my book, but I would sit and play. And sure, learning was happening during the lessons, but I never did my homework for music. I did my homework in other lessons in math and English, but music, I never practiced what the teacher wrote. So I wouldn't worry too much for a 7-year-old to practice what's written, unless your child maybe seems unmotivated. I would try something else as well. But it sounds like a 7-year-old that wants to engage with their organetto, with their accordion, or whatever instrument it is. If your child is playing the recorder, is picking up the ukulele, is doing these things, fantastic. I would say that that's the thing to aim for an enthusiastic learner about the subject. My 7-year-old is outside almost every day shooting basketball. If I try and come and say, this is probably the big thing, at age 7 for my child, again, with the hope of having a 30, a 40, a 50-year-old that has music in their life, I am not correcting them at this point. The basketball analogy. I'm not telling my 7-year-old, you're double dribbling. No. I'm not telling my 7-year-old, you want to shoot like this. I'm telling him to shoot underhand, and he's loving it. And he's doing it. And he's outside every day doing that. I might show him something. We might, again, do a challenge. You do what I do, or let's try and move back or forward. He loves that. The aspect of play and fun is so crucial at a young age. The detriment, my biggest fear for my son and for education in general is to scare the child from doing the activity that they want to do. To say, that's incorrect. Use these fingers or you're not doing it at all. It hurts me to even say these things. A child that is learning to write, no, don't do it that way. I think there's no... For certain learners, I'm going to say the majority of learners, that is not the way to do it. There's no faster way to dissuade a child from doing something than to say it has to be done this way. At a certain age, perhaps, but when you're learning a new language, music, when you're learning something which is play, the exploration is so crucial. When a toddler, when a baby is making sounds, that's part of exploration. We don't tell a 3-year-old, no, you're making the wrong sound when they're exploring a new language. Someone who's learning a new language, especially a child, there's so much learning happening through that exploration of sound. What we saw my 7-year-old do during the live stream, that is such a crucial part of learning, of experiential learning, that to get rid of that, I think kills that part of the joy of the person. Again, I'm speaking about myself as a learner and what I see in my kids. I know that there are other kinds of parents and other kinds of children whose goal is different than my goal. Who I know that there are 12-year-olds who are playing concertos, and that's a different approach to learning. It's a different goal. I know that a lot of adult players that come to Accordion Love, that come to my accordion program, were taught music differently, and they know how to read music. This could be you. You know how to read music and express it with your fingers, but the part that was lacking was how to express yourself with that music, how to make the notes sing, right? It's like we were taught to follow a recipe. I know how to mix flour and water, but I'm seeing someone make beautiful cakes or beautiful pizzas. And my idea is, let's experiment with flour and water as kids or at any point, and let's see how they mix. It's a strange analogy, but let's encourage this exploration of getting dirty with things, of getting dirty with music. It's okay to play incorrect notes, but to have an understanding, an experiential understanding of these materials that we're working with. I hope this answers any questions or concerns. Every child is different. Every parent's goals are different. But in general, I believe that things would be healthier. We'd have a better musical understanding if we saw more people playing music, if we saw more people dancing and making noise incorrectly. And I think that would give children a better idea of what learning looks like. Sometimes when we see someone do something perfectly, there's almost no room for mistakes, but to see someone enjoying what they're doing, to make it look not necessarily easy, but to show the mistakes, I think is a wonderful thing. And if everyone did that, if everyone showed how they moved in their rhythm and their craft, their talent, whatever it is, I believe that more children would be okay with exploring their music. I hope you're well. Thank you for the wonderful question during the live stream. Bye-bye.